Great. Thanks very much, Jenny. Yes, next slide, please, Deek. All right, so great. So we're now going to talk through our two different contexts, just because like what Jenny and Deek were talking about with In-Sessional being very different as a very different setup in different institutions for different reasons. So part of being able to answer the question, what makes In-Sessional also has to do with context and what shapes that. The context definitely shapes our answers to those questions. So Jen and I are just going to talk through our two contexts and then hand over to you to discuss this question, because part of this whole point of the SIG is to kind of find out what's going on in the practice that's going around the country, around the world, and how it is very different and also similar in many ways. So at Durham, the way that our EAP is set up is we sit within a centre called the Durham Centre for Academic Development. This centre has several departments, including Foundation, which is for widening participation home students, learning technology team, academic development team that trains both staff and PGR students. And we also have a master's in TESOL and applied linguistics within our center. So we do have quite a lot of departments within DCAD. This year we have a newly formed academic skills center, which is part of our response to the university's access and participation plan, which is a fairly recent plan. So part of the new initiative, the new academic skills center, is we're doing a lot more collaboration with the library, disability services, and counseling as part of our centralized academic skills package. So that is taught sessions from people from those different areas of the university, as well as a one-to-one help. So we are offering one-to-one help specifically with disability services. Our provision this year is prioritizing two groups of students, widening participation home students, so that could be mature students, first generation scholar students, and international students. All students can access our provision, but we are now prioritizing those two groups as part of the university's access and participation plan. However, we do have a very small team that works across many different programs. So it's really a balance between offering support, all of these different aspects of EAP, but also being able to do that with a small team. So our small team, we work across In-Sessional, Pre-Sessional, Foundation, and MA-TESOL and applied linguistics. And that's all of our workloads are a little bit different in how we divvy up the work between those different programs. So it is that kind of balance, because with a small team, we have to be able to support the university as much as we can. We don't have a learning development team in the library, so we are it as far as academic literacy provision for the university. We also have a new initiative this year in the educational development space that's being led by my colleague Steve Kirk, where he is going in and helping academics embed academic skills and writing into their programs and modules, working alongside those academics, and often team teaching with them and contributing to curriculum development as well. So that's the context at Durham. And I'm now going to hand over to Jenna to talk about Leeds.
Thanks, Jess. So In-Sessional at Leeds is centralised within the Language Centre, but with departmental secondments. And these can either be an individual secondment, as in my case with the School of Food Science and Nutrition, or it could be a group secondment. So in the School of Education, there are 3 colleagues currently seconded. And it can also be for a differing number of days. So I'm seconded for 4 days in semester 1 and 2 days in semester 2. And we're quite a big team, and we have 36 colleagues currently seconded across the university. Therefore, because we're seconded to schools and faculties, we are embedded within those schools and faculties, and we work with departmental lecturers and students to co-construct the curriculum, and also to offer and contribute advice to things like assessment tasks and deadlines. Within our sessions, we are open to all, so we often have a mixture of home and international students, and depending on what the school has asked for and conversations with the school, we also provide a mixture of provision. So, for example, in food science, I run workshops, I deliver lectures, I give language sessions, and I also offer one-to-one consultations. Where possible, our In-Sessional follows on from the content-based pre-sessionals, and we also work with other colleagues across the university. So I co-deliver lectures with the library learning advisor and the lab technicians, and I work with the assessment lead and the school academic lead for inclusive pedagogies as well.
So based on those different contexts, then we can now maybe answer this question of what makes In-Sessional for us as EAP lecturers and teachers. So for me, it's definitely explorative. At Durham, we work with all levels of students, all different disciplines. So we can work with anything from a foundation level student all the way up to PhD, and across different disciplines. So it is very explorative. And I think that's one of the really exciting aspects of working on In-Sessional. But it also means that we're wearing many different hats. So in one day, for example, I or one of my colleagues could be seeing students in one-to-one consultations. Either that could be a drop-in or a longer consultation, the writing consultations. It could be writing and then teaching on academic skills session, centralized academic skills session. It could be working with academics in departments, writing sessions and teaching sessions. It could be developing asynchronous resources. And also, many of us have leadership roles as well within the department. So we have many hats that we wear on a daily basis, monthly basis, that sort of thing. And then also increasingly, as I mentioned at Durham, In-Sessional for me is working toward moving toward working with those two key cohorts of students of widening participation and international students. And for Jenna?
And for me, In-Sessional is embedded. So I'm working with the academic language and literacies of food science and nutrition. Because it's when it works alongside their master's programs, it is really responsive. So today, for example, my students asked if we could run a session on writing blogs, because that's one of their assessments. So we can change the curriculum as we go. And it's also giving students that support at the point that they need it, so they see the relevance. But one of the challenges is the continuous change. You, for example, have a good relationship with the DSE, and then the year after it's another DSE. You write a great session on their blog assignment, and the next year they're not writing blogs. So it's adapting continuously to the changes that are happening within the school that we're embedded in.
Yeah, and then Jen and I, obviously we had a chat when we were creating this PowerPoint, and we kind of came up with some things that we both feel makes In-Sessional for us. So definitely creativity and flexibility. I think anybody who teaches in In-Sessional, and I'm sure many of you here can relate with this, we have to be very flexible. So that's definitely part of it, and also creative. For both of us, since we're both working with home and international students, it's a juggle of working with both of those cohorts, often in the same room. So having to differentiate our teaching for those students. Also, there's a certain amount of selling to students and departments. So for example, at Durham, because we have our centralized academic skills provision for all students to access, we have to do quite a lot of marketing to help students know about our courses and the rest of our provision, and also to be able to sell to departments, to be able to go and talk to them and tell them what we do, what is EAP, help them understand that and see how we can maybe support their students in different ways.
We also both said that In-Sessional involves a lot of collaboration and networking. You've got to make those relationships with the lecturers within the departments. So it's continuous collaboration and networking. And as I mentioned earlier, those roles often change as well. So the networking aspect never kind of stops. And we also said that In-Sessional has a large impact on your role as practitioner identity, that sense of belonging. Do you belong in the school that you're working with, as well as the language centre? Are you part of that team as well? It has an impact on the role that you do. And we also both have a strong emphasis on scholarship in our roles as well. And the final thing that we thought was quite a large point was that balance between EAP theory and practice, wondering if you're taking the right approach. So I know that when I'm selling to students to ask them to sign up to my In-Sessional, I have a big focus on assessment support. And then what I do in the class is something completely different. And it's wondering, am I taking the right approach? Okay, next slide, please. As well as Jess and I discussing what makes In-Sessional for us, we also had a wider discussion as the committee, and this is what came up. And as you can see, a lot of it is the stuff that Jess and I have been talking about, like collaboration, support, but then other things came up as well, like interdisciplinary, student-led.
Mhm.